Hey everyone, this is Grandmaster Ben Feingold. I was thinking of going to sleep, and then I realized I had to make a video because you guys were probably staying up all night, watching, especially those of you in Europe where it's like 4 in the morning. So you've been up all night, and you've been talking to Elton John, and he's like, "It's 4 in the morning. Listen to me, good," and so forth. Anyway, I looked at every round of the Sinquefield Cup, and I've been watching them live, obviously. And I couldn't find any games I liked where anybody won. And of course, I'm a big Wesley So fan because we're teammates, and he's the best player in the world, and you suck at home. But he's getting crushed over here. He's in last place, so solid. It's actually pretty funny, actually, because 2 years ago he came in last, and then last year he came in first. So I guess it's time to come in last again. And the people on the internet, if you can call them people, they're like, "Oh, Wesley So's no good because he had a bad tournament." And then if he wins the next tournament, then he's good, and whoever comes in last is also no good. So it's a tough town. For some reason, even though Magnus never wins a tournament, and he's never in first, and he never wins a game, everybody says he's the best ever. So Magnus hasn't won a tournament in about 15 months. And this tournament, he's been in second, third, fourth, fifth, the whole tournament, and somehow he's the best. Lately, the best has been Levon Aronian the last maybe 6 months. And probably the year before that was all Wesley So. He won the U.S. Championship, and he won the Sinquefield Cup, and he won the London Chess Classic, and he won the Grand Chess Tour pretty handily. And his rating went way up, and he got to number 2 in the world from much lower, whereas other players were sort of floundering. In fact, I think Levon was floundering for about 2 years. He was number 2 in the world, and he was about 2850-ish, 2840, and then 2790, I don't know. But now Levon's back, somehow. Anand's back, which also is strange. And Wesley's going down. Magnus is still 2820 and not really gaining rating points. It seems like he's having a bad 3 years, but he's still number 1 in the world because he started out in the 2880s, so it's hard not to be number 1 when you're so high. And he's a good player, but the next match probably won't go so well for him. Anyway, the game we'll look at today is the game that was decisive today between Wesley So and Levon Aronian. Levon was white. And this game was decided basically in 1 or 2 moves. It was a pretty good game, actually. Unfortunately, if you watch the live broadcast, there's not good analysis because, as I described yesterday, they don't look at the games much, and they spent about 90% of the time looking at MVL's game with Fabiano, which was a crazy Najdorf. And then when that game ended, they spent the rest of the time looking at Nakamura somehow escape Magnus. So, and that game never ended. I think it's still going on, even though it was drawn. I think it's still happening. Okay, so let's look at the game. They played this Ragozin variation, and actually, when I did some preparation for the video, I noticed Aronian had black in most of the games, but he's white, so there you go. And this is my game with Irina Crush. I made a video about 2 months ago. I don't know. Whenever I beat her. I only beat her once in my life, so it should be easy to find. And I think against Irina I took on d5 first, but I think and I didn't play queen a4 check. So the big difference was I didn't play queen a4. I just played like e3, and eventually I played queen b3. This queen a4 check is more common, and he took on c4. So actually, this is nothing like my game with Irina because I remember I took on d5 pretty early. I didn't play queen a4. So I'm not really the world's leading authority on the Ragozin, but okay, white's slightly better. As is usual with queen pawn openings, this bishop's no good. And otherwise, black's okay. Black has 2 bishops, black's castled, white hasn't castled yet, black has some center control. So, okay, and he took on c4. And in this position, he played them with bishop c3. And in fact, Wesley and Levon have both had black in this position. And the more common move is to play bishop to d7. In fact, Levon played that and lost, and Wesley played it and drew. And I think they were both really well prepared for this game since, they play it with both sides. So I don't know if bishop takes c3 is going to become popular. Probably not, because black lost the game. But obviously it wasn't due to the opening where he just about equalized. I think I always want to have white in this game because I like the pawn structures, but I mean, you know, if you trade, it's usually pretty boring. Okay, so he took on c3 right away, and then played bishop to d7. So, okay, the queen on a4 is not too good, so queen takes c4. And I found one game in the database, and the players weren't very good. And in this game, Wesley played rook a c8. I'm sure this is prep. I think in the other game, Black played rook f d8. Rook a c8 makes more sense because in the game, Black activated his pieces by playing knight a5, and obviously you can't play knight a5 if your pawn is hanging on c7. So rook a c8 actually makes sense because now you can move the knight somewhere. Now these kinds of structures are, to me, very good for white. The only advantage that Black has is that white has this isolated a-pawn. Otherwise, I just like white. But it's very solid for Black. It's hard for white to do anything super aggressive, just white has a better center. Okay, so he played rook a d1, getting his rook off of a1, makes sense. Rook f d8, and he played knight d2. This is a common in queen pawn openings to move the knight on f3 to retreat it, especially when knight g5, knight d4, and knight e5 are all illegal or terrible, which is the case here. And the reason is several-fold. You like the e4 square for your knight when you don't play e4. I've actually said that in several videos before, that in a lot of queen pawn openings, it looks good to play e4, but I like to keep that square available for my knight if possible. You can see if I play knight e4 and knight c5, that could be reasonable. Also, you want to play bishop f3, because the bishop's nice on the diagonal. And sometimes, and I've done this many times when I'm white, I play knight to e1 in similar positions. I'm going to go to d3, and that controls a lot of squares. So moving your knight off of f3 to use it for your other pieces and to maneuver around, and occasionally you're going to move your f-pawn also. Okay, and I think actually Levon did all those things. So knight d2 makes a lot of sense. Okay, knight a5, as I explained earlier. That's why he played rook a c8, defending his c-pawn. And then b6. So, I mean Wesley, so I mean so. In this position, and in all queen pawn openings, and in fact in the last 3 days with my private students, I've been explaining this concept. Black wants to play either c5 or e5 and put pressure on white's center before white just does this. And then the director would be called, probably my comer, and they'd be like, why is my opponent doing this? So something wrong with his arm maybe, I don't know. I did fall down the stairs a few days ago, my arm still hurts a little. Okay, so in fact, Wesley played both moves. So when he played b6, not only is he protecting his knight, but he's going to attack white's center. Makes sense. And typically, I think if Wesley was in good form, he would be really happy here and have no trouble. In fact, during the game, which is very unusual for Levon, Wesley had a time advantage. Usually Levon, when he's white, plays really quickly and gets a slight edge and has a huge time advantage, but that didn't happen this game. Levon did play quickly, but so did Wesley. I think if Wesley was in good form, this game would just end in a draw because Black's equalized and he has a very simple plan of just attacking the center, trade, agree to a draw. Okay. Anyway, that's what I thought would happen, but okay, he played bishop a6, attacking the rook because, you know, when Black plays c5, the rook is very well placed on the c file, so he's making it move to a less smart square. Rook b8, and then knight e4, as I explained earlier, queen f5, and bishop d3. And this is a funny position because a lot of people get scared when there's discovered attacks. I mean, every knight move for white attacks the black queen by discovery, but I don't know, there's not a super exciting discovered attack. So Wesley played bishop c6, threatening to win the knight, and the knight can move somewhere, but I mean, the black queen would go to the g file, probably g5, and threaten queen g2 mate. So there's not really a good discovery. Okay, so he played, thought he played something. He played f3, and that sort of kills the power of the bishop on the diagonal. So that's good. And also it prepares to later play e4 and get a nice center. I mean, I thought it did. Oh, maybe it's made my computer go crazy. That's what I meant. Okay, so e4, and f3 is very solid. It just thwarts this bishop. Okay, breaking my rules. So now it looks like black's going to win. How can you break my rules? Okay, so he played bishop takes a knight, and that's probably a minor mistake. And it does break my rules of never trade. And in fact, if you turn any engine on, that's not a move. But after it thinks for a long time, it says it's okay. I think the engine wants to play queen to d5 to get the queen off of the same diagonal as the bishop. And other moves are reasonable too, moving the queen somewhere else. But okay, he took the knight. Now everybody's breaking my rules. So one of my rules actually came to fruition. Never play f3, never trade. Those were both broken. But I've explained for years to deaf ears that a queen and bishop are better than a queen and knight. Everybody laughs at me. And then usually I laugh all the way to the bank. But as some of you are watching this video waiting patiently, I'll tell you right now, I still haven't been paid. Okay, so now you can stop watching the video. If I do get paid, I will tell you at the beginning of the video, spoiler. So supposedly other people have been paid. I can't prove it, but I've heard of such. In fact, a student who came over today, he won about $30 in the tournament, and he got paid. He said he got paid days ago. So it's not suspicious at all that somebody who won $30 got paid and somebody who won a lot more did not. That's nothing untowards about that. Okay, so he took with the pawn, which gives his rook a lot of action. Now the pawns are doubled, so the weaker you are at chess, the more disgusted you are, because you guys don't like double pawns. But I mean, when all your pawns are in the center, that's pretty awesome. Right, Karen? She's there, but she ain't talking. Okay. So also she's not listening. So that's shocking. My wife's not listening. All right. So now there's a double attack on the queen. So probably you should move it. And so he did. And he played queen g5, which threatens the e3 pawn. Rook f3. Defending the pawn and preparing to double rooks on the f-file. And if Jennifer Shahadi was here, I'm sure she would say preparing to do a rover. Okay, and finally, Black did what he wanted to do. Played c5, and he played e5. Okay, and the idea is, I mean, I'll just keep taking on d4 until I win material. That would be nice. And if you play the obvious move at some point, d5, looks obvious, that blocks up the position, which isn't good for White's bishop. And Black would then play the standard maneuver, unless I push the wrong button, which I did. Knight to d6 and blockade the passed pawn. And eventually Black's going to be better because the knight's going to be awesome and the bishop's not going to be awesome. But, okay, we want the position open, so we're sort of hoping that Black takes. So he just doubles the rooks. And again, this is slightly better for White, but it's not winning or anything. Okay, and then traded pawns on d4. And he defended f7 with rook to b7. And d5. Okay, and d5 has to be played eventually because I'm gonna play rook d7. That's a lot of pressure there. Okay, now White has one big trump in this position, and ain't the idiot in the White House. His big trump is Black knight on a5 is not good, and if you could play knight c5 or knight d6, which is the plan, Black's position is great. White has doubled e-pawns, and Black's knight is probably better than White's bishop if it's on d6 or c5. As it is, White can start a kingside attack because Black's rooks and knight can't defend his king, and White has doubled rooks on the f-file. White can swing his queen over, and White has a pass pawn on d5, and the knight on a5 is just terrible. So the computer slightly prefers White here. But, I mean, if Wesley was in good form, I think he would draw this game. Okay, so he played the move rook c7, and that has several ideas. I mean, the obvious idea is it controls the open file. You don't want your rook on b7. And the other idea, which I've already explained, is the knight wants to get to the c5 or d6 squares. Okay, and h4 attacking the queen. And here it's unclear whether Black should play queen h5 or take the pawn. This is just removing the defender idea because the queen on g5 is defending the pawn on e5. And, of course, Levon would like to take the pawn on e5 and then later play e5 and get his bishop active and get his pawns rolling. I think after queen h5, I can still play rook f5. So I think it's about the same. Okay, took on h4. Okay, and so far, I can't really complain about anybody's moves. I think this is a very high-level game. We didn't get to see much of the analysis because they kept talking about this crazy Najdorf game where it looked like Fabiano outprepared MVL and was getting a really good position, and somehow NVL drew the game anyway. But that was a very exciting game because that decided who was in first place. If Fabiano had won in first, and MVL drew, so he's in first, with a big group of people chasing MVL. We have Fabiano and Magnus and Levon all at +1, half a point behind, with 3 rounds to go, so it's pretty interesting. They were so focused on that game, we didn't get to see much of this game. And here, Black has to play very accurately to draw, and even then he's a little worse, but I think he would draw on a good day. And today wasn't Wesley's day. Now he just played all bad moves. And if you're my student, I have some words of recommendation for you. I hope Karen's listening. Don't play all bad moves. Throw in a good move there once in a while. Just throw in a good move. Trick your opponent, confuse them. Okay, so in this position, obviously, frankly, the rook on c7 is attacked. And the rook on c7 is defending the f7 pawn from the onslaught of white's rooks. So we got to do something about that. So there's 2 obvious moves. There's queen e7 and rook e7. Actually, this is counterintuitive to me because it seems to me that if you play rook e7, your queen on h4 is a little funny. If you play queen e7, everything's really solid. And I guess that's what Wesley was thinking too. But actually, after rook e7, it's hard for white to keep the attack on black's king with all his pieces over there, because if he moves his queen anywhere on the queen side, we can try to trade queens. In fact, the engine line was to play rook e7, queen f4, and then take. And it said that white was a little better because, white has a passed pawn on d5. But of course, black is gonna activate his knight pretty soon. And I think Wesley would draw this endgame, even though it's a little bit worse. And rook e7 is slightly better for white, but he blundered here. He played queen e7. And this is a really bad move because it removes all the defense from black's king, and it allows us to gain a tempo. It blocks the rook from defending the f7 pawn, which isn't so good. So queen h5 is good, queen g3 is good. And, well, now we're just going to push our center pawns, and we're going to attack f7 and g7 and so forth. And the computer already says that white has a big advantage here. It says queen d6 is forced, and after queen d6, it says white has a huge advantage by playing e5 and then e6 with a discovered attack on the rook and an obvious attack on f7. And the computer says something like, I don't know, plus 1.5, 1.8, so really good for white. And that was the only move, because white's killing it now. You basically can't play chess without a knight. It's not good. Knight's on a5. It's been sitting there the whole game. So, okay, Wesley underestimated the danger and played queen c5. And Levon thought for a very long time here, and he played a fantastic move. Very strong move, and it basically just ends the game. Now, white has the advantage anyway, but this move is really powerful. So pause your video if you haven't seen the game and try to find the right move. I'll wait. I have some sparkling water here. Okay, so maybe you found it. It's the move rook f6. And this has the very simple threat of just taking on h6. And also we can start to advance our pawns now. And there's nothing to do because your king, which is on g8, therefore allowing rook takes h6 because of the pin, it's also defending f7. So if you decided to defend your pawn on h6, then your f7 pawn's hanging. So yeah, you're just in incredible trouble here. The computer already says that black can resign. There's no defense at all. Yeah, and actually I thought he did resign, but it turned out they played about 4 more moves. But it's already something like +5, even though the material's equal. And the main reason, again, is the knight on a5 just isn't helping at all. Also, we can't get counterplay with our queen and start taking these loose things because our queen is defending our rook. So the truth hurts. Okay, he played h5, which saves his h-pawn. Makes sense. Rook h6, which he would have played anyway. It doesn't win a pawn, but maybe it does, because you can't really defend the h-pawn now. Queen c3, which pretends to attack the bishop. Rook takes h5, white's up a pawn. Again, you can't take the bishop because your rook is hanging on c7. So now white is up a pawn, and he's going to put his queen on the h-file and play rook h8 mate. The truth hurts. So he played g6. And now a lot of moves win. I guess the easiest is rook h3. When I say the easiest, I mean like for a human it's the easiest, because after rook h3, you're going to play queen h4, and your rook on h3 is defending the e3 pawn if you ever try to take it. And you can put your queen in front of your rook, which is sort of what you want here. But Levon played very incisively with e5. And this is incredibly winning because I can take on g6, I can play d6, I can play e6, I can play queen h4, which threatens the rook on d8 and rook h8. It blocks the queen from defending the h8 square. So now when the queen goes to the h-file, it's completely winning. And here Wesley resigned. I think when Wesley resigned, he was expecting, after queen takes d3, the only reasonable looking move to me, that white would play queen h4, which threatens this very quick checkmate coming, and it threatens to win all of black's rooks with check. And that's very winning. I'm not, okay, that's +5, +6. But the engine, which is really mean, plays the simple move rook h3. It doesn't even take any material. And even though black is up a knight, it has some crazy evaluation, like +15 for white. And the reason is, you really can't stop from getting mated. I'm going to play queen h4 and mate you. Good luck. And if you stop queen h4, e6 is winning, queen g5 is winning. Imagine I play queen g5 threatening your rook on d8, and I'm also threatening queen h6 and queen f6. No, and queen h4. So this is amazingly winning, even though you're down a piece. This piece doesn't really count. So. But I don't think that's why he resigned. I think he realized after queen h4, he's going to be down a lot of material and getting mated. And if he doesn't take the bishop, he's down a pawn and getting mated anyway. So after e5, it's incredibly winning. White's pieces are all on black's king. Black's pieces are all away. So not a good game from Wesley, but a very good game from Levon. And it basically just stems from a couple of bad moves. Let's go back and refresh your memory. In this position, black had to play rook e7, and the computer says white's a tiny bit better. And just this move, queen e7, is already probably losing, and after queen c5, he's just dead lost. After rook f6, it's over. So it wasn't Wesley's best game. Obviously, he lost pretty quickly. And Levon played very incisively. He got his rooks active, he activated his queen. h4 was a nice move, so he could win the e5 pawn and start opening things up. And wow, after Wesley played knight a5, the knight just stayed on a5. That's not good. So that was the only decisive result today, and very good win for Levon. He's tied for second. And there's a big fight now for second in the world. I mean, Wesley So was second in the world, then Kramnik was second in the world, then Wesley was again, then Fabiano was. MVL's fighting for second in the world. I mean, anybody could be second in the world after this tournament. I think there's like 3 people. In fact, maybe Kramnik could be second if everybody starts losing. He just sneaks in there. So, and this is actually very important. It matters psychologically maybe, and you guys are interested at home, but it actually matters for the World Cup. They invite people on rating based on an overall 1 year or 2 year period. So you want your rating to be higher than other people, otherwise you're not getting in. So anyway, that was, I think, the most interesting, easiest quick game from the round, the only decisive game. And Levon played really well. He's been playing really well for a long time, so he's back. All right, this is Grandmaster Ben Feingold. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you're in Roswell, Alpharetta area tomorrow, Johns Creek, you could follow me because I'm going to be putting tables and chairs together at the Chess Center. You can start to help. So let's get going here. If you're in another country, another state, Atlanta has a really big airport. Okay, and don't forget to donate. The more you donate, the more you learn. And join our events. Come to the grand opening on 9/9, especially if you're German. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with another great video. Go Wesley So. Bye, everyone.